presidential candidate RFK Jr. responding to a question about who is a bigger threat to democracy, President Biden or former President Trump. Listen.
When people talk about the threat to democracy that Trump poses, do you really think that is an equal evil to Biden?
I mean, listen, I can make the argument that President Biden is a much worse threat to democracy. And the reason for that is President Biden is the first candidate in history, the first president in history that has used the federal agencies to censor political speech, so to censor his opponent.
David Webb is a Fox News contributor and the host of The David Webb Show, and he joins us now. David, good morning to you. Democrats are not going to like hearing that he said that Joe Biden is a bigger threat to democracy, arguably.
So he's done something smart for his political campaign, which is take a phrase, threat to democracy, which Democrats seem to, fall into more and using it. That's using Biden against Biden. Look, it's just smart politics. He's right about using the weaponization of federal agent of the government and social media and more, because he's got a court decision on that. So for RFK's purposes, this is just smart politics for him.
He will eliminate more invitations to Democrat Party events going forward, because I think he's been eliminated for most of them. That kind of comment is going to get him kicked off entirely. In the latest Fox News poll, Trump 43%, Biden 38%, RFK Jr. 12%. Quickly, what's your takeaway from those numbers?
I don't do head-to-head matchups. I don't care who it is. Issue-based polling is what matters. If he keeps going on issues, I think he's more of a danger because of he's aligned more with Democrat principles and Democrat voters. He is a Democrat running as an independent. So I think it's smart for him. But 12% is, look, I watch Ross Perot. I knew Ross Perot. Even Ross Perot didn't buy some of the narrative about his overall effect on the election. He knew he had an effect. I think RFK's a bit overblown. He's on another state. That's good, but let's see how far he goes.
All right, well, Hillary Clinton was on with Fallon last night, and she gave some friendly advice to people who are unhappy with the Trump-Biden rematch. Watch this.
Yeah. Can we talk about the upcoming presidential election?
Oh, no.
Yes, we have to.
Get over yourself. Those are the two choices.
Yeah, love that.
Right? One is old and effective and compassionate, has a heart, and really cares about people. And one is old and has been charged with 91 felonies. I don't understand why this is even a hard choice.
And, David, one of the things that is surprising to me about the Biden presidency is really that his compassion, something that Hillary Clinton was just talking about there, it's really been called into question in numerous occasions.
Hold it. I'm a Neanderthal who's not black enough because I didn't vote for Joe Biden.
And you got to get over it.
The great uniter, but I need to get over it. This is kind of Hillary's latest version of her Benghazi moment. What difference does it make? She's kind of telling you this. Okay, so hang on. How bad is Jimmy Fallon's audience doing and his audience share that he thinks bringing Hillary Clinton is going to bring new people in to watch his show? Sorry, Jimmy, it just doesn't add up. Hillary Clinton needs to be relevant. Her irrelevance is probably her biggest fear. It's been her history entire life. And I think we just kind of move on to tomorrow night's show if anybody's watching.
Yeah, I don't know if bringing in old Hillary Clinton gets that 18 to 25 demo. I don't know if they're clamoring for
Get a mirror, right? Hillary, and look at. Never mind. Let's not go there.
Because, the bigger issue is who's really taking voting advice from multiple-time presidential loser Hillary Clinton? I think that's an issue.
Well, look, she couldn't even win because Americans really don't trust her. She's not genuine. She's not authentic.
Yeah, and also if your selling point is compassion, which Hillary Clinton mentioned in that clip, and you look at what happened just last week where the former president was at the memorial for
Mr. Diller, Detective Diller.
Detective Diller, and also look at how he handled the withdrawal from Afghanistan, talked to the mother-in-law of Nicole Gee, one of the service members who died. She's still trying to get an appointment from the president and apparently has not heard back. David, thank you so much for joining. Got to leave it there.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.